Right, let's get to work on sculpting some of these folds. Now here's a challenge for you. It might seem a little bit unorthodox, okay, but this is a good kind of part of the mesh to start off with. Okay, so we've got this Vambrace here. We need to add some folds, but we're only going to add some folds where we haven't done that extra layer. So before we do anything else, I'm just going to take my standard brush and I'm just going to mask off just this kind of extra arm guard we've put on the top here. Okay, now that's a bit of a messy mask, but obviously come in and tidy it up. And basically we want to just unmask any area that isn't that extra layer we've done in the last video. Okay, just something like that. Doesn't have to be amazingly precise. We'll have to refine where that guard kind of sits later on anyhow, but for now we're interested in just getting the folds around this particular layer that we've added on. Okay, so just give a quick once over, look around it. Yeah, that's fine. The top is not relevant, so that's no worries there. Now let's jump down to subdivision level 2, and this is the challenge. I want you to have a look at the glove, and I want you to use the glove as your reference for these folds. Okay, now let's have a look at our glove here. A couple of things to look out for is that number one, it's going to start with number 2 there for some reason, but number 1, we've got the general shape there. Okay, what I mean by that is we haven't got massive cuts and, you know, like big, we haven't got lots of folds that interrupt the overall shape. So for example, if you look at the shirt here, we've got all these like crevices. It looks like the crater of the moon, right? It's not very smooth. Whereas the glove here, yeah, we've got a few deep cuts, but they're very minor, very few in number. But what we do have are a lot of folds that just kind of trickle and take away these solid edges instead, like I'm looking at the fingers here in particular. Okay, we've got a lot of these kind of folds that are very thick, they're not very thin. We did use a damn standard brush, but we didn't use it for almost every stroke. We used the standard brush mostly for this part here, and that's what we want to do. Okay, so we want to retain the overall shape of the Vambrace, but we just want to go ahead and add a few strokes in there just to indicate, yeah, it's made out of leather. Yes, they've got this extra layer kind of grafted onto it that's going to cause some folds around that area too. So we just want to use the glove here as a reference for the Vambrace. Okay, that's the goal there. So let's go ahead and look at these straps. We will hide them so they don't get in our way. We're at subdivision level 2 for this, and we are just going to use a standard brush. The standard brush is going to be, let's say we're kind of fixed on the standard brush for now, so rather large size. Bring down the intensity. So what we don't want to do is something like this, for example. We don't want to do deep cuts that do change the kind of shape of the Vambrace too much. Now, of course, you can if you want to. If you like that, you can go for it. But for me, that's a bit too much. Instead, what I'd want to do is pick out an area. So under here, I just want to do a quick kind of oval, and then I might paint strokes like that. Okay, so I've upset it a little bit, but not to a massive degree. In fact, I'd almost say that's probably too much. I might just go and add that back in. Okay, so just small ones like this on the surface. Again, a suggestion of folds rather than actual heavy folds, if that makes sense. Okay, right, so what I would suggest if you're not sure what to do, if you think about a pair of clippers, let me draw clippers for you, like, and they usually have like a little clipping end like that. That's the kind of folds we're almost going to go for, okay? And also another type of fold you can do are Y-shaped folds that are like this essentially, okay? Right, so that's another type of folds we're gonna go for there. And then of course you've got the classic fold, which is just a kind of bent horizontal line like that, which you can also use as well. Okay, so we're just going to stick with those 3 types there and just see what we're going to get. Okay, now if you're unconfident and you don't know where to start, my advice to you, start at the top and start at the bottom. Why? Because these parts here almost always have a fold like this. It's never going to be smooth all the way to the top. It's going to have a fold there. And what I recommend is if you kind of paint in a stroke like this, okay, that's fine. Interrupt it over here. Don't carry it all the way across, because then it starts to look like an actual definitive line. Interrupt it. So have something cause a stroke that causes stroke, but causes stroke to fall over here. Not a stroke that disables people, obviously, but interrupted, like that, okay? Because that creates, it makes it look like it's a natural fold, it's a formation instead of the leather fabric, okay? In fact, you could almost say that that's basically a Y like that, okay? Right, fabulous. Just be careful not to, again, create such deep cuts like this. Just be a little bit wary of them, okay? And then at the bottom here, like I said, another place you can start, and you can go over the seams here. We'll just sort of do the same there. Again, the ends, I know we spent a lot of time in the last video just kind of making these ends flat, but we do want to kind of make them a bit more round again. So you can see there, undulation. Let's create a fold over there. Have it go around quite a bit, but don't forget to interrupt it again. Okay? Interrupt that fold. Take it elsewhere. And you could almost sort of say here, you have it come down there, and then you can actually join this into Y. Now it starts to get a little bit difficult to see what I'm doing, but basically joining that together like this. Okay. This is just an example, alright, something like that. So if you stand back and have a look, there you go. Okay, now what happens, for example, if you do something like this and you do create quite a large stroke? Don't forget, your trim dynamic brush can come and put that back in place, okay? But try not to do that as much as you can, okay? Right, so enough talk, let's get down to business. So we've got this, I've got this kind of oval shape here. I quite like the look of that. I think I'm going to go for another sort of, I think I'm going to go for another one, but I'm going to start it rather big up here. I'm just going to introduce it there. Have that go into a Y, have this flow over here. Something like that. So I'm basically, it looks like I'm drawing large lips. Fish lips, essentially. Okay, and then feel free to kind of undercut that. I'm going to make an undulation there, something like that. I'm going to do the same thing here, maybe do one there as well. Maybe I might turn that into a stroke there, sort of just carry some ideas around. Oops, unfortunately the character will sort of get in the way a little bit. Okay, so let's hit the pause button here. What's gone wrong? I've kind of upset the layer a bit too much. Okay, so I'm just going to smooth that out, and I'm just going to try and add a bit more consistency in the layers here. Okay, standard brush is pretty good at doing that. Okay, so I haven't done much, but already you can see the effect that some of this is already having. Okay, right, hopefully you've kind of got the idea of it yourself and you're following along quite well. So just a little bit, some strokes back here, and let's make this one interesting. Let's have a stroke that meets there. There we go. So actually, more often than not, I'm actually using the inverse of the standard brush and kind of cutting in rather than drawing folds on the top. Let's join this guy up here. We'll make a bigger fold here. Let's solo this out now. Okay, so automatically I've got this kind of oval area there. That looks pretty okay. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm quite happy with this area now. I'm going to leave it, and I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to try and pick out maybe some areas here to start doing. So maybe there, something like that, and now just do a vertical fold, or a horizontal fold like this that ties into that area there. And then here I'm going to have a few little disturbances because it is kind of trying to take this extra, what can we call it, plate, but it's not plate, into play. Okay, so just stand back a little bit, have a look at what you've got. Any kind of flat surfaces, try and take care of them. Okay, right, so I would say don't do anything more than that. Jump up another subdivision level and now start to refine some of these strokes that you've made. Okay, any boring ones? I've got a few boring ones. I've got one here. I don't like this. It's just a horizontal line straight across. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to change this by drawing another stroke here. You can see just by doing that small little bit, I've made it non-boring now. Okay, and let's just cut it in there. That's fine. And let's use, again, swap the different sizes, play with the different sizes here. And we're just going to work on emphasizing some of the, well, the strokes that we've just done at the lower subdivision levels. So this part here, I'm going to build up like a bit of a mountain, okay, because I'm going to use the trim dynamic brush there in just a minute. And this part here, let's do this. Just kind of exaggerate that a bit more. There we go. And here we've got the opportunity to do one of those kind of X's, if you like. There we go. And we've got an interesting one here. We've got that could carry down into there. Smooth that out. Okay. So of course your mileage will vary because you're kind of creating your own strokes as you're following along with me perhaps. Or maybe you're watching this now and you're going to do this a little later on, maybe in between the videos, however you wish to work. We're not working with exactly the same folds anymore, so your mileage will vary. But just try and pick out some shapes and folds you want to keep. And emphasize. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to kind of blend that into the overall Vambrace a bit more. Smooth that out. Right, so let's take in the trim dynamic brush now. So this part here I created, I'm going to flatten that and basically try and push it back into the surface of the Vambrace. Okay, because it's a bit too big, I don't want it sitting up that tall on the surface there, so I've kind of pushed that back down. Okay, and then here as well, I think instead of it being round, I'm just going to kind of chisel it from the top here, so it's got a more kind of lower cut now. Okay, and same here. And I think I'll just emphasize that X a little bit, and don't forget to do the top areas as well, or any other areas you want. Okay, I might take a bit to it here, maybe here. Try and always pick like an upper part or a lower part to favor. Don't try and go for the middle because folds are usually weighted towards upper weighted folds or lower weighted folds. Okay, right. Right, so let's pull back a little bit. Let's have a look and put it back with the glove there. Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Okay, so what are we going to do now? I think for me here, I'm still not happy with this area, so I'm going to use my inflate brush. I'm just going to inflate some of these areas here, just to reduce some of the surface undulations I've got going on. Okay, and I can also deflate it as well to try and keep some areas a bit more under control. Okay, and if you think you've got too many folds, remember to kind of zoom back a little bit to see how you're doing, then you can obviously just smooth them away. Okay, or you can use your trim dynamic brush. So let's say, for example, I don't like this particular fold here. I can just trim dynamic that out of existence. Okay, because maybe I feel I don't need a fold there. I think that's actually quite an improvement. Maybe I might just trim dynamic that area out as well. I might trim dynamic this area out as well, because it can be a tendency sometimes, particularly with more the thicker fabrics like leather, you can overfold too much. Overfold too much. Good English sentence. Very good. Very good. Okay, something like that. So what are we going to do now that we've got rid of those folds? Well, I'm going to come with the standard brush and just very lightly suggest something, but I'm not going to do any particular folds. I'm just going to suggest. Just suggest. Okay, so you can see there, I've just made some light suggestions there. Maybe let's do change the material a bit so we're not working with such harsh shadows. Okay, so I'm just going to suggest, solo it out a bit more. Keep your distance from the actual Vambrace. Just suggest some things rather than actually paint in deliberate folds. There, something like that. Okay, that's essentially what you're going for. Last little step, down standard brush. Just pick out a few key areas you want, a few key folds. Okay, now it's not mean to say you can't have any deep cuts. You can have a deep cut, like I'll make this a deep fold for instance. Okay, you can have deep folds, just try not to have too many because you'll end up, I think it makes it not look as nice. Okay, so you can have a couple of deep folds there, and obviously, and again it depends what you personally want to go for, what kind of look. I just think for myself I don't want to turn this too much into wrapped bandages looking like, so I just want to add in a few folds there that are resemblant of leather rather than bandages or any other softer fabric. Okay. And just try and define where these folds sort of stop and start. You can have little cuts as well, but not too many. Not too many. Let's do a little bit of a cut in there. You can sort of suggest the same thing over here. Okay, let's just continue on over here, maybe bump up the subdivision a little bit for this part near the wrist. Now even though the wrist is kind of a bit kind of bumpy looking, we do want rather straight edges there because again it's leather, so we do favor straight edge folds, or sharp edge folds I should say, rather than straight edge folds. Feel free just to create a few extra lines with the damn standard brush. Okay. Right. Not too bad, not too bad. Okay. Last little part, I think, let's just be, I don't know how this is going to look. Let's just do something quite drastic. I think I might come in here and just, what happens if I do that? Just sort of diagonally upset everything like this. I don't know. Not bad, I suppose, but not too in love with that idea. Nah, I don't think so. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so let's come in with the inflate brush now, last little step, and we'll just kind of stipple again. Remember how we did the stippling around some of the seams there? So we're just going to do the same thing here on some of the bigger chunks of our folds here. Okay. Just use that inflate brush very lightly, particularly when it gets to the edges of fabric like this and it reaches that seam. Okay, and somewhere here as well, probably going to cause a bit of a difference in undulation here. Right. One thing I want to do, I'm not happy with this overall fold here, so I'm probably just going to Oh, the lower subdivision, I think. Lower subdivision. Just want to incorporate that into a nice big chunky one like this. Hollow that out a bit more. It can be hard sometimes to get the result that you're looking for. And I think no autosave, and I'll trim dynamic that to make it a bit more flat. See what it looks like at a higher subdivision level. Yeah, that looks a bit better. Okay. Okay, trim dynamic again. Excuse the lack of commentary here, I'm just working on a particular piece. I'm sure you can kind of see what I'm doing. Just trying to get this to look a bit more correct. There we go, that's better. It's finally not annoying me as much as it was before, so I've kind of quote unquote fixed it. Okay. Right, so hopefully you've got a very similar effect there, or I hope you got a better effect because you can work a bit more time on it. Okay, but hopefully I've shown you the ideas that you can take to create your own folds for the Vambrace here. Now, if we desolo that, we can see how our final result. Let's put the straps back on because they are part of said final result. So where are they? They are here. Cool. Okay. So you might be thinking, well, are we going to put the straps into play in terms of the folds? Yeah, you can do. You can do. You probably want to. So what I'm going to do here is just as a last final little part, I'm just going to sort of, because I'm not really interested in keeping these as the final straps, we're going to recreate them in Maya again anyway. I'm just going to kind of shrink this guy down very quickly. Okay, I'm going to make this a smaller strap in terms of width compared to the one above. And what you can actually do here is you can actually sort of put the strap in line with some of the folds you've done, or vice versa. So here, for example, if I come back to some of the folds I've done, I can actually maybe exaggerate this area here. Let that sit on top, and maybe some areas under there as well. Like so. I didn't recommend doing this in the first place just because, well, I don't want the straps to necessarily get in the way of some of the folds you might want to do, but you can always just tweak some of the trajectory of said folds to kind of play in with the straps later on, like I'm doing right now. So this guy here, there we go. Oops. So maybe let's go for a fold on top there instead. And then this fold can stick out a bit more. Okay, any other areas? There we go. And then let's do one here as well. This is where the mask is starting to kind of get in the way a little bit, so we can start to de-mask that area there and just work with a bit more freedom to try and get this to sit together a bit better. Okay. So I'd always recommend keep your distance from the overall mesh so you can make some more, bigger decisions, better, more informed folds, final decisions here and there. Okay. There we go. And I think what I might do is just small standard brush, maybe not so much like that, just do some little marks as it collides with this other extra layer here. Okay, Right, and then another last piece here. We could maybe use a standard brush there, or we could tell the glove to sit in a bit more. I think I'm going to actually use my inflate brush here, just inflate that a little bit, just a little bit, and that's created too much of a sausage effect on the wrist there, so I'm going to come in the trim dynamic brush and just trim that down, smooth it out. Okay, fabulous. What subdivision level are we working on? We're working on a 3. Let's jump up to 4. It might just do some very last finishing touches. I should have also mentioned that a lot of these folds will probably be informed by how old you believe the leather would be. Okay, so if it's obviously quite aged already, you're going to have a lot of wrinkly folds and creases and possibly even slashes and cuts into it, in which case you can just do some like this. Okay, you can just do some kind of slashes in there, that's fine too. Anything like that. But most of the wear and tear, I would advise you to leave it to the texturing point where we start to do it in Substance Painter, because we're going to have an easier time just defining where all that should be a little bit with a little bit more control inside of Substance Painter. Okay, right, fabulous. Okay, so hopefully you've got an idea of how your Vambrace folds have gone there. That's pretty good, not so bad at all. Okay, the next part I would like us to focus on in the next video is going to be this top part here. What are we going to do with that? Spoiler alert, we're not going to do too much of it, because again, a lot of that kind of pattern making and textile kind of decorating will come in the Substance Painter part.